Hey, deserving listeners. I feel like I have to really enunciate that because the voice to text recognition closed caption thing on YouTube almost never gets it right. So unless I say it very slowly, it'll be either hey, German listeners or hey, disturbing listeners.
Every day you've done exactly what I would want in a wife. I love you to death, and I want a relationship with you, and I want us to work so bad. But I don't want to go to the altar. I can't.
Wow. What? Y'all must have been watching me watch this and think, oh, Kirk, it's coming. Yeah. Wow. Well, Jimmy, lead with that. Why? Why do it on? Well, so who knows? Well, they're told that they're supposed to do it on camera, right? So there's that. But I suspect that a lot will do it off camera. I think I talked about how my contact on the show, or maybe I heard somewhere else, it's all speculation, that Kenneth and Brittany had already had that conversation off camera and then they recreated it on camera or something like that. It did kind of look that way. Anyway, so it's not uncommon that people have those conversations off camera and then recreate them. So maybe it just occurred to him. It doesn't look like it just occurred to him. But to spend all day together and then to ask her, to kind of bait her, hang her out to dry, she wasn't giving a very enthusiastic endorsement of their relationship, but she basically said, yeah, I'm in it. I'm in it to win it, with some asterisks, with some worries, some concerns. And then for you to come out later and just say, not only am I a no, but I don't, well, maybe he's saying he wants to date. So there's that. And he's doing it on camera. Yeah. And I think she might have some kind of relational trauma regarding humiliation as well. When Mackenzie called and says, your man is out, and why aren't you with him? And that seemed to really be a big trigger for her. She even talked about that during the fight. The way she was talking, she was totally fine staying home. She was cozy. She was tired. And then she gets this call. So could this be a version of the humiliation since it's on camera? But yeah, it's interesting. He says he can't even go to the altar. And I'm really glad that a lot of the couples are saying these kind of things before they get to the altar, because it just seems so cruel to go to the altar and reveal it. Like Bartice, Nancy seemed completely convinced, particularly because Bartice sends this letter or gift or something during the day that says, let's do this. I think that's what he said, and it's not a direct indication of him saying yes, but, given all the other things he was saying. So you want to, I think the compassionate thing is to, as soon as you know that you're a no, that you don't wait for the altar. Anyway, unless the two of you agree, because like Cole and Zeneb, apparently, according to Cole, had agreed they were going to be a no at the altar, but they did it together before even the bachelor parties, I think, away from the cameras. The problem was that Cole and Zeneb, when they were at the altar, Zeneb really went after him, and Cole was blindsided and hurt by that from, I think, my understanding of the situation, because he thought that it would just be a kind I'm no, like, no, I'm not really feeling it, or no, I don't feel like we're a good match, or no, I'm not really ready, whatever. But she went on a whole rant about him and said some, pretty awful things. They could be all true. Maybe it's all maybe it was all justified. I don't know. But anyway, wow. I can't, well, let's see what he says.
So bad. But I don't want to go to the altar. I can't.
I'd like to think that he said something there. And he gave some explanation instead of like just ending it. He does have a tendency to be brief when he is in a a tense situation. Like with Jessica, he tended to do that. He doesn't tend to do that with Chelsea as much, but so there's that. But there's a possibility they edited that out for dramatic effect. I would like to think that he said something there. But anyway, let's watch.
Okay.
Well, now it's starting to look like he didn't say anything, because he's not, unless he said a whole bunch of things, and then now it's her time to. But yeah, I mean, so if we just go off the edit, if that's how he said it, my God, Jimmy, like, say something more. Like, I'm sorry, or I want to date after, or which it doesn't seem like that's what he's saying, because he's just hanging her out to dry. So say something. I mean, if you're breaking up with her, okay, but give it a little bit more effort. He did the same with Jess, and I think he has a problem with guilt. I think he was maybe made to feel guilty. People who are avoidant sometimes are made to feel guilty because they will resort to distance, and when they are threatened, they will shut down, and even with their parents, they can be yelled at about that or something. Like, show that you care, or be more considerate, and then there's more of a shutdown, and so there could be some kind of thing there for him, because I think at least there's some minor indications of that. Anyway, so maybe he is shutting down. But the other thing here is, if I'm near the ballpark regarding her issues, the emotional turmoil and pain that she is experiencing right now, it can be physical for some of these. It can be physical for all of us. You know, there's a reason why we say, "Oh, you're breaking my heart," because it can feel, and it can actually feel painful, right? You know, you're stabbing me in the heart, or whatever. There's a reason why we have those metaphors and those phrases. And for people with what I think her condition is, that there could be just overwhelming pain right now. So I'm worried about her.
The other day, with the rest of the guys and the rest of the couples, you've said it like literally 3 times since then about Amy and Johnny being the strongest couple.
I said it twice, and I said it because we were working through some.
Okay, I'll wait, but this is interesting that he's bringing this up. Let's see what he says.
Things, and I thought that we have, and for you to just sit here and tell me that you're not going, like you're set on not going, right? Am I getting that? You're set on not going.
I'm set on not going.
That's all he has to say? Just yet, and she kind of interrupted, not terribly, but he was only halfway through. You know, the other day, 2 or 3 times at the lake party, you said that Amy and Johnny were the best couple. And he did indicate that he was hurt. My best guess is that, and this is pretty bad of me to guess, but that he was either subconsciously or consciously ambivalent and conflicted about marrying her at that point. And I guess you could argue after chatting with Jess could have affected him, again, subconsciously or consciously. And he is looking for something to point to say, well, you made this mistake, and so it's not my fault that I'm leaving you, that kind of thing. I mean, he wouldn't have to look very far for something to use along those lines. I mean, their last fight, there were so many things. Like, he could say, you straight up lied to me a number of times during that fight that you heard that Jess was there and Jess was not there. You just lied to me as a way to try to manipulate me, or I don't know. So there's a lot of things he could dig for if he really wanted to. So I'm guessing we're not going to get much more detail, but I think what he's trying to say is that hurt me so bad, so I now don't want to be with you. Or he's saying you highlighted something that is very true, which I now realize is true. Or you revealed, I think maybe this is what he's saying, you revealed that you don't actually think of us as strong, which is clear, and therefore it means you don't really have strong feelings for me. Because if you had strong feelings for me, you wouldn't say we weren't as strong of a couple. But I think Chelsea, all she was saying in that moment was there's zero hesitation from anyone that would say that this couple is a good couple. There's like no problems, and they're so in love with each other. They're a strong couple. We fight. AD and Clay have their issues. Amy and Johnny have no issues, and they're seeing a lot of chemistry. So they're the strongest couple, you know. But what is he saying?
Why did you propose to me? I feel like you weren't even trying to get married.
You don't think I was trying to get married?
Yeah. I just wish he would say something more. But it looks like he's breaking up with her. If he's not breaking up with her, my God, Jimmy, what? Because I'm thinking, is he saying let's date? But all things are pointing to them breaking up. It's so interesting. So if they don't make it to the altar, another season with hardly anyone going to the altar, which is fine. So we have her saying things that typically will happen for anyone when they're being dumped. You never loved me. You manipulated me, that whole kind of thing. And it's very important, as I've said many times, that when you're breaking up with someone and they start thinking that, and sometimes you want to get ahead of that just in case they are thinking it, not indicating to you, that is not the case, because it's going to be hurtful to be dumped anyway, but it is doubly hurtful for the dumpee to have a narrative that they were never loved, that they were manipulated the whole time. There's so many bad lessons that can be learned from that false narrative, and it's normal to think that way. It's like, if you really loved me, we wouldn't be here right now. But we all understand that love comes and goes. It does. Some people think it can't because true love doesn't do that, but that's just almost like a religious, supernatural belief. Love is so many things. It's a behavior, it's a mindset, it's a feeling, it's a compulsion, it's an attraction, it's a spiritual duty, whatever. There's a lot of different meanings and things to focus on, but love can be the most, someone can be the most in love they've ever been and have it be legit and healthy and non-problematic. And over time, for whatever reason, even if it's not conflictual, it just fades sometimes. That happens. We don't know why. That's why there are so many poems and so many songs and so many movies and so many reality TV shows that concern with love, that are, tell stories of love, because we're fascinated by it. We're oriented that way as humans. We're very concerned with this. So it's complicated. And so I hope that he disabuses her of that notion.
I don't expect this right now. We were just picking our songs for walking into the fucking reception. Are you kidding me? Why did you treat me like you did today? We had the best day today. Why didn't you tell me then? Why did you waste my time coming here? Because you just wanted to do...
Yeah, it's a viable question. And it's a frequent question that'll come up. And I think, given what I know about the situation, what would have been good for Chelsea is if he broke up with her before they did all this. He could have thought, well, he wanted to have one last fun interaction, but that can feel really manipulative and really hurtful. And it rewrites that whole story. It's like, wait, so this whole time I've been humiliating myself and loving you and kissing you, and you just asked me, and I just got done telling you I do want to marry you. You led me on this whole time, and you knew this whole time you were going to break up with me? Like, why did you do that? Yeah. Now, in real life, because this doesn't usually happen, I don't know if you can hear that air blower, I have someone in our neighborhood that is using that air blower constantly, and we're in spring. There's no leaves. Leaves have already fallen months ago. What are you possibly blowing? I've gone down there before, and I've confronted some of the people that do this. I'm like, because it's so loud and so long. When I use a blower, 5 minutes, 6 minutes, some of these people, There was one guy, he was blowing a roof. He was actually a like a landscaper, and it was one of those old style roofs, with the shingles and all the, it's like actual wood. I don't know what they call it, but there's a lot of places where little bits of leaves can get stuck in. I get it. I've had roofs like that before with moss and all kinds of stuff. Yeah, if you sit there for 45 minutes blasting one shingle with your blower, eventually those little bits are going to come out. But you got to bend over and just pick it out with your hand, or use like a rake or a broom or something. That's what I learned. It's much faster, and it's a lot less noisy, and takes a lot less time, and better for the environment. Did I say it's faster and it takes less time? I don't remember. Anyway, it's bugging me. It's getting louder. I feel like they're getting closer to the house. I just want to say, oh, I thought it stopped. No. It particularly drives my wife nuts because she's closer to that side of the house. And anyway, this conversation is putting me in a bad mood. Anyway, yeah. So in the real world, typically, this will also be another reaction from people, and they'll say like, why didn't you tell me last month? Or why didn't you tell me 3 months ago? Now, some people can avoid and will avoid. They will put it off. I think Jeremy might have actually done that. So that does happen, and that's very aggravating. It's very immoral to me. You're basically lying by omission about something that's very, very important. So that does happen. But a lot of the times what can happen is that people will have a strong feeling of wanting to break up and a strong feeling of not wanting to break up. And both exist, or they vacillate often between the two. And it's normal to want to make sure, right? You might even have a couple months where you're like, yes, I'm done. But if you've been together for 10, 20 years, you have kids together, you don't want to just impulsively, and some might consider that impulsive. You have 2 bad months and you're just like, you're done already. So you want to give it some time. And if you don't have the relationship where you can really talk about that openly, which could be part of the problem to begin with, then, it can be hard. And so there's a lot of waiting and seeing and putting off and reevaluating and trying other things, or just not wanting to think about it, right? So that can happen. And I think that that's okay for people to do. And best case scenario, there are explicit conversations in couple therapy or outside where there's at least some indication from the partner that wants to break up or is thinking about it. At the very least, they have some major issues that they want to change in the relationship. They don't have to say, look, this has to change or I'm going to divorce you, but it has to be like, look, I'm kind of struggling in the relationship right now, and let's talk about it, that kind of thing. So you would hope that would happen. So even if you do that, sometimes the person being broken up with will write the story that they were being manipulated over the past few months when it's going too far sometimes. In this situation, yeah, if he's that sure, it sounds like he's been sure for a while. I don't know how long. He might have been very sure after that fight that they had last. I don't know. Let's see what he says. He's not saying much, which is not helpful.
This?
The only opportunity is to tell you when I feel it.
I feel like you've known you were going to say no this entire time, and you just wasted my time.
You told me 2 weeks ago that you thought that I didn't love you.
I think they're editing it, but anyway, he says, I'm not going to say. Did it stop? No, it's still going. He's saying, I'm not going to tell you I don't want to be with you until I feel it. So I think what he's trying to say is that he just came to this realization. It's possible. It is possible. It's not likely because they've had a good day, it sounds like. So what's the thing? Now, maybe for him, he's like, okay, I'm going to have a really good day. And if I feel the spark and the magic, then I won't break up with her. But for one last chance, it's possible. Then say that. Whatever it is, Jimmy, say it.
And then I took a step back and said, I'm willing to try because I love you that much.
Like, I love you.
I love you too.
When you know,
I do love
you. But not enough.
I'm not saying I don't.
That's what it sounds like.
I'm not saying that I love you. I think the world of you.
Okay. I think what he's saying is, I love you and I don't want to marry you. So I hope Jimmy's pretty clear about that, if that's true.
I was so optimistic when I started this process that if I put myself out there, I would find my person. That led me to you. That's the greatest thing I've ever done single-handedly. It was hard, but it was the greatest thing I've ever done. And before that damn argument, I was so set.
Oh my gosh, Kate, before.
Okay, so it sounds like he's saying that that big fight was the kicker for him, which, yeah, makes sense. And I think Chelsea could have a legitimate gripe saying, well, then why not tell me right after the fight? I'm guessing for him, he wanted some more time to make sure, he wanted to talk it over with someone or something. And if that's true, then say something. But at the very least, I don't think very many people would fault someone for telling them a week later when they seem pretty sure of it. You know, that you just think you would do it before you have this nice date, and then you bait her by asking her, do you want to marry me? And she's like, basically yes. And then he's like, well, I don't want to marry you.
Before you lied to me, before you did this, called me clingy, before you did everything to me that I've gone through the ringer for you, I'm like walking on eggshells with you. I can't tell you things that hurt my feelings because you get so upset.
I don't need to. I hope I don't. So I don't know what y'all's reaction is to this couple, or I don't know what your reaction is to my reaction to them. So I look at you right now, figuring that you see it too, but I can never know because I record these and then they get put out much later over time, you know. So I just have to assume that at least some of you understand how, given the edit, how strange that statement is, that he's the one that gets so angry. Have we seen him exhibit like that sort of anger? Well, yeah. I'm trying to remember. At the very least, that's not the overall thesis or the topic sentence. It's not the title of the book. You wouldn't say, Jimmy and Chelsea, the story of how Jimmy is unreasonable and angry by Chelsea. Anyway. But when you have relational traumas, it feels that way, and it is that way, even though it isn't that way. It's not a lie, potentially. Now, it could be a lie. It also could be an edit. I could be biased. I know that I am biased in various ways that I can't be aware of all the time. But anyway, so, yeah, I think she's starting to spin, and that, yeah. If I'm close to the mark regarding her issues, this is actual abandonment. She doesn't have to invent something. She doesn't have to exaggerate something. You know, if we saw her react the way that she did when he went out for an hour to make an appearance at a birthday party, if she reacted that way to that, imagine how she would react to this. Now, for people in his shoes, depending, they will typically have a way out, right? Because they no longer are trying to appease, or they don't have motivation to try to work it out so they can get away. But not always, because for some victims, this is when the abuse really kicks in. So I'll put that in. I don't know if that'll happen here. I don't even know if she's abusive, but I'm just going off the edit. There are a lot of signs of abusive, or just flat out abusive behavior, like telling him he can't have friends, that kind of thing. It wasn't directly what is, but you get, I've already been over that. Anyway, but I want to rewind that. I don't know why. I just want to make sure that I'm hearing that statement correctly.
Before you did everything to me that I've gone through the ringer for you, I'm like walking on eggshells with you. I can't tell you things that hurt my feelings because you get so upset.
Now, it's possible that that is how it feels to her. It's also possible that there are legitimate reasons. There are legitimate reasons for her saying those things. But there's also a possibility that she's wording it that way as a way to get out ahead of what she imagines to be criticism against her, using that specific phrase of eggshells, because well, I don't know about her, but for people that present like her, I will often find that they have reactivity and relational traumas that produce everyone that's close around them to walk on eggshells, whether It's fear of being violently attacked or emotionally attacked, or just concerned about someone's rage being triggered, or to worry about the person with the relational traumas to go down a spiral in which they might kill themselves. It's complicated, but, it's one thing to think about suicide and have that affect people around you naturally. It's another thing when it's interwoven into the attempt to manipulate and manage other people, abuse other people, or control other people. Now, there's a lot of debate there given case by case, but I've talked about this before with this couple, but if someone has legitimate chronic suicidal thoughts, sometimes they can use those as a tool of manipulation. Like, look what you're doing to me. Now I want to kill myself. Or do you really want me to die? Because that's what you're doing to me, right? Or they might even attempt as a way to try to manipulate you back into the relationship. And they might be halfway legit wanting to die because of the amount of suffering that they're going through. Now, some people will have attempts or suicidal thoughts that will be accused of manipulating other people. Some of you might have experienced that yourself, even though that is definitely not the intent. So the accusation isn't necessarily an indication that that's really what's happening, but that's just another version of intimidation. I haven't seen anything like that with this couple, I want to be clear. But at any rate, she's saying, I'm the one walking on eggshells, and I can't bring anything up to you because of the way you react. Yeah, the way it looks from the edit is the things that she brings up are made up issues that don't make any sense. And even if they aren't made up issues, she comes across as very unreasonable and demanding and angry and rigid and lacking any kind of flexibility or working something out with each other. So that's what we see in the edit. Yeah, I mean, if they break up, in my head I'm like, ooh, I hope they work this out. But if they break up, I have almost no optimism, no matter what they do here, that she is not going to walk away with a particular, let's say things go really well for him here, and he manages to reassure her in whatever way he can that he did love her and that he doesn't hate her and that he apologizes for hurting her feelings in whatever the ways that she would want apologies for. In all likelihood, if I'm near the mark regarding my hypothesis, soon after, maybe even the next hour, but the next week at the very least, she would start to rewrite that story because of the amount of pain that she's likely to feel, right? I mean, this is actual abandonment. This is the original trauma. This is actual triggering. And there's no way to manage that and to just be alone. Before, when they would have their fighting, they could at least have closeness and security, and she could at least depend on that, right? Whereas without that, she doesn't. Now, I'm hoping and guessing she has people in her life that she can turn to. We do know that eventually she engages in therapy, so she could depend on the therapist in some ways for that security. And I like how I dress up in like wedding attire-ish. And we're not even there yet because of my yammering. Now my dog is barking.
Like, you're so set on not going because of our one argument. I'm just like, that is blowing my mind.
It's not. Okay, well, you're condensing it down to one argument, but it's like 5 or 6 really big issues that like really hit home and hurt my feelings.
Yeah. It's at least what she said there is more reasonable than saying that she can't bring anything up because she's walking on eggshells because he overreacts. At least there, it's more understandable that she would say that. If you love me, I thought it would be able to make up for the fact that we had a fight, Yeah. And even though her words are not taking responsibility, there is a high likelihood that her true feelings underneath all of this is that no matter what he says, no matter what he does, she knows that she is a horrible, unlovable, worthless human being. There's a pretty good chance that that is what's going on. So to watch this and conclude like, oh, she's a jerk face for blaming him. Yeah, on the surface for sure. But she doesn't, if she controls that narrative, which she has through this whole time, by the way, because there have been a number of moments where she'll say, well, you do that too, even though it didn't look that way. And she was controlling, like when Trevor was talking with her, she's like, well, I haven't done anything wrong, that's for sure. So you might look at that and think like, oh, that doesn't seem right. That's an injustice. And yeah, on the surface it is. And that can cause a lot of problems for sure. But she doesn't just walk away from that narrative being established saying, and that's why I'm a wonderful human being. No, in all likelihood, that whole presentation is because she is desperate to defend against what she knows to be true. As an analogy to this, we can think about for all of us regarding our confidence in our life. Like for me, when I was first starting out as a therapist, I took criticism from my supervisors and colleagues and clients. I took the criticism much harder than I did eventually when I felt more confident in my worth as a therapist and my abilities as a therapist. When I became more able and I had more evidence that I knew what I was doing, which was years later, by the way, which is normal, I was much more serene when I got feedback or criticism from supervisors, colleagues, clients, which I found to be ironic in a way, if that's the right use of that word, because you need the most openness to feedback at the beginning of your career because, of course, you don't know what you're doing yet. And later in your career, you also need to be open, but it's not as important. And it's true in life as well. For her, she would benefit from having some ability to accept criticism. If anyone on this show would benefit from at least letting a little bit of the feedback from others into her heart, it would be her. For her own sake, she would benefit from that. There are concerns of anyone on this season, at least from what they've shown us. She has shown a lot of indications that she would benefit from contemplating her assumptions and her behavior and her healing path, that kind of thing. At the same time, she's the least likely to do that. And often the reason is because the more problems you have, the more relational traumas you go through, the harder it is to even begin to think that you might have problems. Like for me, given the way I was raised, it's pretty easy for me to go to therapy, for example, and to just sit down and talk about my faults. That's not because I'm more differentiated or healthy or better than people that present like her. It just means that I have the privilege of being given a lot of self-esteem and evidence that I matter in the world, such that when I have that opportunity to reflect, I have that to stand on. It's not an inherent strength that I was born with. I was given that strength by the way I was treated. And for those who weren't given that, you have it coming and going, right? You both hate yourself, but you can't accept that you did anything wrong, because if you accept that you did one thing wrong, then it just punctures that hole in the veil of the defensive structure, and you just, yep, there I am again. So you do everything you can, just, no, it's not my fault, it's not my fault, it's not my fault, because they know it's their fault, and they know that they're a horrible, worthless, rejectable human being, particularly in moments like this. So, that's possibly what's happening right now. All right, well, let's adjourn there. Tune in next time when I continue watching if you care to. And everyone out there, please take care of yourself, take care of others as well. Really, when we watch this, you can sort of lose yourself in it and maybe get wrapped up in it. And there's a lot of opportunity, I think, to self-reflect, to reorient your priorities, to have compassion for others, to reach out to others, maybe understanding yourself or others in new ways that might make it a change for yourself, such that you reach out to those people and say, I think I was giving you too much of a hard time about that. I think maybe you were coming from this place. I think there's a lot of good there. What comes around goes around, I hope, because otherwise, why is the universe the way that it is? Let's all just believe that it's the right moral thing to do unto others as you would like to be done unto you, right? So take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.